How you doing? My name's Steve Reagan with CSO Online. I'm here at the Thin Air booth at Black Hat, and we're going to talk about asset tracking and data. So, as I said, I'm here at the Thin Air booth. Why don't you tell everybody who you are and what we're going to look at today?
Sure, I am Tony Goda, founder and CEO of Thin Air. We've invented a new technology that allows you, we basically do what we like to call information attribution. And what that means is that we can tell you every single person within your organization that's ever seen a particular piece of information. And why that's important is that in the event that information is leaked or stolen from the organization, we can tell you within about 90 seconds who the actual leaker within the organization was. That's our superpower.
So I first came across Thin Air during the RSA show earlier this year, and there were some things about it that stood out to me. As many of you who have read me or seen me speak know, I'm a red teamer at heart. But I also do really support the Blue Team's initiative, especially anything that happens during incident response. I'm a big fan of that. And when I saw their demo, the thing that stood out to me was, if I'd have had that 10, maybe 15 years ago when I was still working in IT, my life would have been a lot simpler. It would have been so much easier. Now, for those of you not familiar with Thin Air, the easiest way to think of them is, it's like Google, but the only thing they really care about is the data itself. It doesn't matter who's accessing what or where it lives, because they know all that. What they're going to be able to do is tell you who's got access to your data, when they had access to it, why they had access to it, how they had access to it, where it went, and then if it went somewhere else, they can tell you who it went to. And then from there, you can drill down further. Well, the person it went to now has access to all of this, and they've been here. It's an amazing mind map of where all of your digital trails are on the network. And what stood out to me during the demo I saw in California was the fact that it finds things you didn't know existed on your network, and that's actually really critical, considering that a lot of times an enterprise experiences a data breach or an incident itself with things they didn't know were there. And that can be a big problem, especially in heavily regulated industries. So what we're going to do today is we're going to walk you through some of Thin Air's product, and we're actually going to show what got me so excited earlier this year. Because anybody who watches knows, I don't talk about products and I don't promote vendors unless they've done something that really, really gets my attention. Let's start with the basics. Show me what a general outlook or a general view looks like on a given network.
Sure, so I'm going to show you a very particular example, which is, let's say that there is a financial institution that has a credit card number that they believe was compromised. So the question is, how did this credit card number get compromised? So normally, when you do an investigation, you start with what we like to call tangential indicators of compromise. So things like anomalous network behavior, your malware system tripped and it gave you an alert. But with Thin Air, it's actually quite different. What we do is we start an investigation with the content that was actually taken from the organization. That's how we started. So let me show you exactly how that works. So what we have here is our console. Our console itself is modeled, it looks very familiar, which is like a Google. Except when you type things into Google, what they do is that they give you the relevant results based on the type. If it's a particular keyword, it'll find like the news, videos, images that are similar to those particular keywords. Well, Thin Air does something that's very similar to that, except when you type in content within Thin Air, we find basically all the entities that did anomalous things with that content itself. Let me show you exactly how that works. So here, in our particular scenario, we know there's a credit card number that was compromised. What I'd like to do is just type that credit card number into Thin Air to start the investigation. What Thin Air does is goes out and finds every single file that ever had this credit card number within it. Every person that ever saw this credit card number. Every device that ever had this credit card number on it. Every network this credit card number was communicated through, and every application that ever touched this particular credit card number. So in this very particular case, there is one credit card number that's inside this particular file called PII data. What I'd love to do is inspect this file to see what else is inside of this file. So inside of this file, and I do that just by clicking on the file name itself. So you'll notice that not only is this particular credit card number inside this file, but there's about 2,500 other credit card numbers. There's about 2,500 other social security numbers, and even 2,700 email addresses. So Thin Air does this automatically the moment that you deploy it within your environment. We also do other business critical things, like in the event that this particular file actually gets stolen, we can even do things like calculate the compliance cost based on the industry. So let's say if you're a technology company, we can tell you very quickly exactly how much of a fine you would to incur if this particular file was actually exfiltrated from the organization. Now, if we know that this particular credit card number is in this file, the question is, how did it actually leave the organization? So we're going to do something very simple. I'm actually going to pivot to see every single application that ever touched this file historically. And remember, the thing about thin air is that we keep every single time someone touches information historically into perpetuity. And what's great about that is that in the event this information again becomes compromised, we can quickly pattern match against it and find the folks that were most likely to do it. So here's a list of every single application. Now this is a few, this is maybe more than 10, but I want to do something simple. What I want to do is just reduce the amount of information I see here by getting rid of all the system processes. So now we have 3 results. So there's VMware tools that touch this particular credit card number, there's Microsoft Excel, then there's also Explorer malware. That's a very interesting process name. I'd love to know more about that particular process. So the backstory to Explorer malware is that it is actually not malware. There was an insider within the organization that wrote a Python script to exfiltrate this information, and he named it this to throw off the incident responders so they would think this was actually malware, but actually it's an insider. So what I'd love to know is that since this file actually did take that one Excel spreadsheet that we talked about, the question is, what else did it touch? What else did it actually take? So we started out with 1 credit card number. We see that there's about 2,500 credit card numbers inside the file that was compromised, but the question is, what else did it take? So let's pivot to that. Click there, remove this, and now you see that instead of it being 1 file that was compromised, there were 74 files across 2 different people, across 2 different devices. And you'll notice that instead of it being just 2,400 credit card numbers, you'll actually see it's about 24,000. And we did this in about 3 clicks. And you notice the compliance cost for this particular breach just went to about $8 million. I did all this in 3 clicks. And actually I think that's too much. I think 90 seconds is too long for us to figure out where insiders are. So we invented a new technology. We call it Moments. What Moments does is literally do everything I just did, except automatically behind the scenes. So all I have to do is click this button, and Thin Air will literally tell you exactly how the breach occurred within the organization based in the context of the information that you're searching for. That's what we do.
And this is why I say, if only I'd had this 10 to 15 years ago, life would have been so much better. So a quick question about the calculated cost.
Sure.
Where are you pulling those figures from?
These are standard Ponemon Institute estimated numbers, and what's great about Thin Air is that we know literally every single data element that exists throughout the fleet. So we can very easily calculate the exact cost that a particular file or group of files or device or even a person could inflict against the organization in the event they were to move to a competitor or exfiltrate information from the organization within seconds.
So let's talk about the agent itself, where we're collecting all of this data and able to track. Where can we put the agent?
It's a very lightweight sensor that's deployed across your endpoints. What we do is that we collect that information as information is being accessed, and we attribute that information to a person. It's about 10 megabytes worth of telemetry that's sent to a cloud-managed server where we then give you the ability to do these investigations. Now what we don't do is store all the sensitive information in the cloud. We just store the metadata around how information is being accessed. What's great about that is that it allows us to answer these types of questions very quickly for your organization.
So let's go back to like some of the earlier customers and trials you did as you were coming forward in the market.
Sure.
What was one of the most jaw-dropping, frightening things a customer's ever seen after letting this run for a little bit?
Yeah, so we literally deployed to a multinational consulting company that was concerned about insiders within their organization stealing information from the company. So we deployed Thin Air. Within the first 2 hours, we caught the first insider. And what they were doing is that this is a consulting company that has a database that's very sensitive. They were stealing that database and setting up competing companies against the company that they worked for. We found the first insider in the first 2 hours. Within the next 48, we found 2 more.
Alrighty then, that's good. So what's next? where do you take this from here?
Our superpower is helping analysts get to the answer as quickly as possible. What we don't want to do is give you more alerts, more reports. Those are things we can do, but we're focused on answering the question that your organization has. What is the impact of this? What is the source of this breach? And what do I need to do in my network to protect this in the future? So what's great about Thin Air is that we give you complete visibility. And that visibility can be used to augment your existing security technologies. We're not a DLP replacement. We're not a CASB replacement. We make your existing DLP technologies better because we tell you everything that it missed. We make your existing CASB deployment better because we tell you everything that it missed as well. We make your existing security investment better.
Once again, this is Tony from Thin Air. We're at the Thin Air booth here in Black Hat. If you'd like to learn more about them, go to thinair.com. If you'd like to learn more about insider threats, incident response, or any other type of fascinating security topic that yours truly will be bringing about, feel free to look us up at csoonline.com. And again, my name is Steve Reagan.